Can you believe that the iPhone 17 Pro might be copying a feature from a 2013 Samsung phone? Yes, it sounds strange, but according to fresh rumors, Apple is planning to introduce a camera feature that Android phones, especially Samsung, have had for over a decade. It's hard to believe, but this is where we are in 2025. Let's break it down. The iPhone 17 Pro is expected to get some solid camera upgrades. We're talking about a 48-megapixel camera, a new and improved periscope lens with up to 8x optical zoom, a pro camera app for vloggers, and even a brand new camera control button. On paper, these features sound impressive. But dig a little deeper and you realize that many of them have already been available on Android for years. Let's talk about that dual camera video feature, the one that lets you record using both the front and rear cameras at the same time. Sounds cool, right? Well, it should, because it was already cool back in 2013. Back then, the Samsung Galaxy S4 had something called dual shot. This allowed users to take photos or record videos using both cameras at once. You could even customize the selfie camera's frame and move it around the screen. For 2013, that was pretty innovative. Now here we are, over a decade later, and Apple is preparing to launch a very similar feature. If it's something brand new, while it may be exciting for iPhone users who have never had access to this kind of feature before, Android fans might be scratching their heads. This isn't the first time Apple has played catch-up. In fact, it's become somewhat of a tradition. Android phones move ahead with certain features, and a few years later, Apple brings them to iPhones, often with a fancy new name and a lot of hype. And it's not just hardware. Apple seems to be borrowing software ideas too. While Android manufacturers have been experimenting and evolving camera software over the years, Apple is now slowly picking features that were once niche or forgotten by Android users. It's like Apple is reaching into Android's past and repackaging it for today's iPhone market. Now don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with bringing a helpful feature to more people. If Apple wants to make vlogging easier by offering dual camera recording, that's great. But the problem is the lack of originality. Apple markets these features as fresh innovations, but anyone who's used Android for the past decade knows it's not the case. Even the periscope zoom feels a bit behind. Android flagships have been using periscope cameras for years, and many of them are now focusing on high-res sensors with AI-assisted zoom instead. In contrast, Apple is just starting to experiment with zoom levels beyond 5x. The rumored 8x optical zoom is a step in the right direction, but again, it feels more like catching up than leading. And the camera control button, that's another small change that feels more like a gimmick than a game changer. Sure, it might make taking photos a little easier, especially for vloggers, but it's hardly the kind of revolutionary update you'd expect in a Pro model in 2025. So what does this all mean? Basically, Apple seems to be digging through Android's feature archives, picking old ideas, polishing them up, and selling them. It's something exciting. For longtime iPhone users, it might feel fresh. But for those familiar with Android history, it's a bit of deja vu, and if you're wondering whether this trend will continue, well, probably. We might see more of these Android-inspired features arrive in future iPhones, from customizable lock screens to reverse wireless charging, all introduced with Apple's signature presentation style. But here's the thing, originality matters. Apple has built a reputation on being a trendsetter, a leader in innovation. And while refining existing ideas is not a bad thing, relying too heavily on features that are over 10 years old is a sign that the company may be running low on fresh ideas. To sum it up, the iPhone 17 Pro might offer some great new tools for its users, especially vloggers and camera enthusiasts, but the tech world is watching closely. Because when your most talked about feature was already seen in a Galaxy S4, it's hard to call it truly pro.